Hello.
Hello.
First of all, thank you for joining us. And my first question is, maybe would you describe the meeting of Foreign Minister of Turkey?
Thank you for this opportunity. For me, this is, of course, first of all, opportunity to speak to you and through you, to your colleagues, to the Turkish society, because I have the feeling that sometimes there are some perceptions in both societies which do not necessarily reflect the true, real relations and perceptions among the two leaderships of the two countries. So I think this is a very good opportunity. I just had a meeting with Minister Fidan. That was, of course, obviously not the first meeting of ours. We had a very good discussion about our bilateral agenda, the steps that have been implemented bilaterally, but also the plans, and general regional issues as well, as you may assume.
Maybe you can specify maybe tangible consequences.
Look, if you speak about the Armenia-Turkey bilateral agenda, several tangible steps already have been implemented, like the using the airspace, like the two specialists from the two countries. They made an evaluation of the infrastructure on Markara-Alijan ground passage, the checkpoint on the border. Also, two countries bilaterally jointly made an evaluation of the infrastructure of Gümrük-Ars railway, the part which is on the border. Several days ago, specialists from two countries met in Turkey, specialists from different agencies, and the aim is the restoration of Ani historic bridge again on the border. There are several other plans, so the things are moving, the things are happening. At the same time, I cannot avoid saying that there are also some agreements which are not being implemented, like we had an agreement to open the border for third country nationals and also citizens of Armenia and Turkey who have diplomatic passports. This agreement is not still, unfortunately, being implemented. But also we both have the understanding that the final goal, the aim, is to fully normalize relations, including establishment of diplomatic relations and including opening the whole border. Moreover, today, interestingly, me and Minister Fidan and the delegations, we discussed opportunities that can bring normalization of relations. I'm saying this to show that our dialogue is not only about merely establishment of diplomatic relations and formally opening the border. It's about a huge trade that can take place between two countries. It's about, and we have discussed some joint energy projects, transit opportunities. Moreover, we have touched upon the topic of cooperation on international fora as well, because the reality shows that sometimes when it comes to, for instance, to Middle Eastern issues, our views, our perceptions are closer than one could assume. So there are lots of opportunities.
During today's session, you also mentioned, but I still want to ask maybe one more time, maybe additional information you can give. So about a month ago, a significant development took place. Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov announced that peace talks with Armenia had been concluded and that both sides had agreed on a potential draft peace agreement. So what is the current status? What is holding up the signing?
Mm-hmm.
Have discussions begun, or they are ongoing regarding a date and location? Is it too hard to specify that? And also, is there any possibility that Turkey could host the signing? Or is there a deadlock in the process?
Well, of course, this is an important question, and I'm not going to hide it. This is part of Armenia-Turkey general conversation as well. As you noted, we have managed to agree over the text of the draft peace agreement, and it's completely ready to sign. This is quite an achievement. This is, I would say, a historic event, an unprecedented thing. Imagine Armenia and Azerbaijan, after long years of conflict, after the blood that we have seen in our region, we succeeded to agree on a text. Now, we suggested immediately to start consultations with our Azerbaijani colleagues, to start consultations to define the venue and the date of the signing ceremony. Unfortunately, we see that Azerbaijan has a little bit different perception of the issue. They think that Armenia should implement some other things to make the signing possible. For instance, they mentioned the dissolution of Minsk group of OSCE. And our perception, our response is that we are completely ready to initiate the process of dissolution of Minsk group of OSCE. But our understanding is that if there is no conflict, and the Minsk group is about conflict, if there is no conflict, then there is no need for this Minsk group as well. But we should see the, if I may say so, institutionalized ending of the conflict, which is signing and ratification of peace treaty. So we believe, and we proposed to our Azerbaijani colleagues to sign two documents on the same day. First, a peace treaty, the peace agreement between our two countries, and secondly, a joint application to respective, secretariat of OSCE about our intention to initiate this process of dissolution of Minsk group. Also, our Azerbaijani colleagues make continuous references to the Constitution of Republic of Armenia. They demand an amendment in our Constitution. They say that in our Constitution, in preambular part of the Constitution, we have a reference to our Act of Independence, which is true, in which we have a territorial claim against their territorial integrity, which is a little bit not true, because only those parts of our Act of Declaration of Independence are valid in the sense of Constitution, which are literally quoted in the Constitution. Moreover, the agreement which we are going to sign, it addresses the issue. So, and here I need to give a little bit more details to understand fully this situation. So, in the agreement, we recognize each other's territorial integrity within the borders that existed between our countries as Soviet Socialist republics at the moment of dissolution of the Soviet Union, and then they became an internationally recognized borders. So this fully addresses the concerns of Azerbaijan's side, otherwise they wouldn't have agreed over the text. And this fully addresses also our perception. If we sign this treaty during and within the process of ratification should go to our constitutional court for a conclusion, for an opinion. This is our legal procedure. So if our constitutional court says that this sentence, this provision fully complies to our constitution, I mean, not having any territorial claim beyond the borders, which is acceptable for Azerbaijani side, which is internationally recognized. So if the Constitutional Court says that this sentence, these provisions, correspondence complies with our Constitution, that means there is no issue. So the answer, the solution, is not beyond the peace agreement, but it is within, it is inside the peace agreement. And the shortest way to address the issue is to sign and ratify this peace treaty. At the same time, I can say that, of course, theoretically, there is a possibility that Constitutional Court gives a negative conclusion. They say that this does not comply with the Constitution. But I have a solid basis to say that most probably they will say yes, they will give a positive opinion. Because, yes, this is very interesting, several months ago, in September, our Constitutional Court gave an opinion on a very similar issue. We had another document signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This was the first ever international document signed between two countries. This was the regulation of joint works of respective border commissions. In other words, the delimitation commissions. So in this regulation, we, the two countries, again agreed that the basis of the delimitation should be the Almaty Declaration, which says almost the same which I just quoted. The borders are those which existed at the time of the dissolution of Soviet Union. So again, to ratify the document, we applied to our Constitutional Court. And our Constitutional Court said that this fully complies with our Constitution. So I have a solid ground to suppose that in case of the peace agreement, which says the same thing, there is a good chance that our Constitutional Court again will say that this corresponds to our Constitution. So there is no issue. In parallel, we see and we have our own concerns regarding the Azerbaijani Constitution. And again, I will explain. This is not just a mere mirroring of the issue. In their constitution, they have a reference to their Act of Independence. So in their Act of Independence, they declare that this Republic of Azerbaijan is the successor of First Azerbaijani Republic, not the Soviet one. And the First Azerbaijani Republic, which existed before the Soviet Union, declared their sovereignty over much larger territories than today's Azerbaijan. It includes more than 60% of today's Armenian sovereign territories. So we have our own concerns, but why aren't we raising this issue continuously? Because we see, as I said before, in case of our constitution, the solution is in the peace agreement. We sign it and we address the issue. That's it. So coming back to the main issue, we are very constructive. We are very flexible. We have worked hard to have this text. Now it's ready to sign. There is no single peace agreement in the world that addresses all possible issues. If the two societies, any two societies, have the history of enmity, history of hostilities, they cannot solve everything by one document. And in our peace agreement, we establish a bilateral mechanism, a bilateral commission to oversee the implementation of the agreement, to handle all possible hardships, turbulences which can and definitely will occur. But we establish a mechanism to manage this process. So again, the expectation that all possible questions should be answered before they can sign, I would say is not fair and is not realistic.
So what should we understand? Are you still negotiating? And do you have an offer for the time and place? And can Turkey will be the host?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that part of that part of the issue. Yeah, because I think this is important for everybody to understand all the nuances. Otherwise, you won't have the clear picture of where we are currently. Yes, we do negotiate because there is no other option. Which is the alternative of negotiations if we do have a peace agenda. So we continue the conversation. As for the venue, it's not important. We can sign it. There is an idea to sign it on the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. There are several other capitals who suggest their services. I'm not excluding anything. I haven't got that proposal. I'm not excluding anything.
So Mr. Just the follow-up of the first question of my colleague. By the way, I also followed your interesting debate with Bayramov and your Georgian counterpart. I mean, as you explained it, there's a solid demand by Azerbaijan to change your constitution. So, a short question, would you consider a constitutional change? I mean, there were talks of holding referendum in Azerbaijan. So, would you consider a constitutional change to sign a peace agreement with Azerbaijan or not?
When the democratic revolution in Armenia took place and our current ruling party came to power, we almost immediately said that we are going to amend our constitution. Moreover, it's as I see it now, it's going to be a new constitution, not even an amendment of an existing one. And the mandate of the current commission, which is preparing the constitutional amendments, discussing the I don't know, legalistic and legal mechanisms, the mandate is coming to its end in 2026, I believe, and in 2026 we are having parliamentary elections. So since 2018 we have been speaking about the necessity of new constitution, and it is in our agenda, so we are going to have it. But connecting it with Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization is not constructive, is not again, I will come back to my previous formulation. You have two choices, two options. You can sit and wait until all answers to all possible questions are given and then only act, or you can start. I will use the same thing that I said during the panel discussion. Putting a brick and then another brick and then another brick, start the process of normalization, and I'm confident that sometimes later we can look back and see that we have built a solid, a powerful bridge. So we suggest to start immediately.
Do you find the Azerbaijani demands, not only the amendment of the preamble or the OSCE mission or even the EU mission, the monitoring mission, even though many of these demands are already addressed, as far as I understand from your comments, within the peace treaty, like, do you find them like with good intentions, or do you think Azerbaijan has a broader imagination or agenda over here? Because as far as I know, you were supposed to basically release a joint declaration on the peace treaty draft, and then it didn't happen. And the Azerbaijanis have basically unilaterally released a statement before you did, and then they made those demands. And it looks like even though this preamble debate has been going on for a while and both sides have been trying to address it, it's still hanging over the treaty. So, and also, my question is very late and I'm trying to bring my mind into it, but do you think there might be an escalation out of this process? I mean, hopefully not, but like, where is this going?
Very important question. Regarding the details, for instance, the European monitoring mission, the mandate of the mission is in general to support the normalization process, to support the stability along the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And as soon as we have a peace treaty entering into force, we won't be needing this monitoring anymore. As soon as we have stability along the border, that means that the mandate, the mission is accomplished, and we won't be needing any additional services there. But in general, this is the main problem, I believe. Not the constitution, not the Minsk group, not any other detail. The problem is that sometimes we have the feeling that Azerbaijan just does not want to build peace with Armenia. For what calculations, I cannot say, but we do have concerns that they don't want to finalize the normalization, they don't want to finalize the negotiations, to sign the peace treaty, to, I don't know, there are several other tricks. We have made several other proposals on connectivity issue, on mutual verification and arms control. We have made very tangible and solid proposals. no positive response, and the feeling is that they are not going to, just don't want to finalize this normalization process. They are not going to build peace. Moreover, we also, from time to time, we see the signs of escalation on the ground. We see this escalation in the rhetoric of Azerbaijani leadership, and unfortunately, we see that this escalation has the potential to become an escalation on the ground as well. The Armenian public opinion, for instance, if you look at it, you will find out that citizens of Armenia mostly think that Azerbaijan has further plans to attack Armenia again, to take control over some of its sovereign territories, etc., etc. So probably the answer of all possible questions is in your question. As soon as we find out the true intention of Azerbaijan, we most probably will find out answers to the other questions as well.
From your comments, I understand that Azerbaijan still didn't give a definitive answer for further meetings on where to and how to sign this peace deal, right?
No, nothing. No news on that. They say that their position is that they are not going to discuss it unless this is done, that the other demand is fulfilled, and then the third thing, and then the fourth thing. Yeah, this is the reality, but we continue speaking to them.
Turkey can play a constructive role to bring both sides, like
Obviously.
at the leaders level?
Absolutely.
And you discuss it with the foreign minister?
Yes, and you know, and Turkey's public position is that we are doing very well. This is my interpretation. I'm not literally quoting any statement by Turkish officials, but my overall impression is that Turkey's position is the following: that yes, we are doing very well on our bilateral track. We have this project, that project. We have the intention to fully normalize Armenian-Turkish relations, but we cannot do it completely before the Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization is completely implemented. So our perception, my personal perception, is that if we start with the other end, if we succeed to fully normalize Armenian-Turkish relations, that will obviously, definitely, for sure, have its positive impact on Armenian-Azerbaijani relations. But this is an issue, this is a question that, I mean, everyone has her answer to. And yeah, if there are different views on that. But you ask me whether Turkey can have a positive role? Absolutely, yes.
So today during these meetings, have you set a date to come together, two countries? Or do you think that there can be another option? I mean, what can be the underlying reason for Azerbaijan with that?
Well, there is
US effect.
There is no plan or agreement to come together, the three countries. Your question was about that. But there are several discussions. Hopefully we will have a happy end to this story.
For example, what did Hakan Fidan told you when you say that if we normalize Turkey-Armenian relations, that might have a positive effect on the other side? What was his reply?
It's probably worth asking this to our Turkish colleagues.
Really? Tomorrow.
Yeah, if you have an answer, please share it with me.
I'll text you.
So you said the general elections are next year, right? In 2026. Yes. So if there is a change, if the government changes, will there be a reversal in the stream between about the negotiations?
An interesting aspect of the whole story. I can say for sure that the peace agenda of current Armenian government and Prime Minister Pashinyan finds full support in the Armenian society. Well, of course, there are those who criticize This is how democracy works. I mean, if we don't have an opposition saying different things, then how can we ensure development of the society in any issue, any question? But in general, we have the support of the majority of the Armenian society.
What about the parliament?
In the parliament as well, we have the majority. But time passes, and if the Armenian government does not deliver tangible outcomes of normalization process, even those who believe in peace agenda will come up with a question asking, okay, peace agenda sounds nice, but you cannot build peace alone. It looks like your neighbors do not share your vision of peaceful and prosperous region and normal relations with the neighbors. This means that it makes no sense for me to support your peace agenda tomorrow as well. So I'm saying this to show that we have the support, but nothing is unlimited in this world, and things may change. Of course, but at the same time, it is obvious that if we have results in normalization, if we, for instance, sign a peace treaty, open the communication infrastructure, people restart, I would say, trade, people would start interactions, humanitarian issues are being addressed, etc., etc., it will make the natural, neighborly development of relations natural, normal, and the reverse to the era of hostilities would become more and more, less and less tangible, less and less realistic. The same I can say for the case of our normalization with Turkey. If we already have made several joint things, if we open the border, if we start implementing joint energy projects, if the direct trade increases, that will change the mood, that will change not only the mood in our societies, that will change the whole region, I believe. We do have this window of opportunity. We do have public opinions supportive to this opportunity more than ever in the past. So we have a choice. We can focus on obstacles, we can focus on history, on the past, or we can focus on present and build better future. We should decide jointly.
Did you have any interactions with the Trump administration? Because with Biden administration, you signed some important agreements before the departure of the last administration. But with the Trump administration, did you have any engagements? Because as you know, there are like lots of talks about Witkoff visiting Baku and signing potentially or proposing the signing of an Abraham Accord that can give security guarantees to Azerbaijan. And of course that will basically change the balances on the ground as well, and it will empower Azerbaijan through the horizon. So do you have any engagements with Trump?
Yes, we do.
That's why I was asking any US effect.
Yeah, I remember that you also asked about the United States. We do have engagements. The U.S. administration welcomed, the new administration welcomed our statements on agreeing over the text of this agreement. I can also say that there is an interest in new United States administration towards normalization of relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We see the signs of it. And if this results in a positive contribution, then why not?
You mentioned that the potential changing mindset of Azerbaijan. Can we say that the public opinion of Armenia has distinctive different between Azerbaijan relations, normalization process, and normalization process of Turkey?
You know, to tell the truth, some wounds are still very fresh, and it's not easy. The issues are very sensitive for both societies, I believe, not only for Armenian society. But we also see that I'm not probably to tell an opinion on Azerbaijani society or their public opinion. I mean, that would be a little bit. That would need a little bit more studies or information. But I can say for sure, for the Armenian society, there is a support to the peace agenda. As I said, there is a support to the this normalization process. Despite the fact that the wounds are still very fresh. But also, we should deliver. This is the main issue. We should fulfill the expectations. Otherwise, again, the moods can change. I cannot see huge difference between the perception of Armenian-Azerbaijani relations and Armenian-Turkish relations, except the fact that, as I said, in case of Armenian-Azerbaijani topic, the wounds are very fresh. There are still the humanitarian issues that are not addressed so far. But there is readiness in both cases, I believe.
Right? Yeah. What I'm going to ask is, you said views are very fresh, but last month Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan made remarks to Turkish journalists in Yerevan that were widely interpreted as signaling a new chapter in relations between two countries. Pashinyan said, "Our official position is that international recognition of Armenian genocide is not currently among our foreign policy priorities." So do you believe this issue, long a source of tension between Turkey and Armenia, can finally be resolved?
Prime Minister said that. Moreover, I myself said that in the parliament. But, you know, history is history. Memory is memory. It could be very hard to forget the ancestors and forget the history. But one thing is paying tribute to the past, to the history, and completely different thing is living in the history. It is very easy to remain in the past. Most probably, moving forward needs a little bit more courage, a little bit more understanding, and a little bit more focus and belief in future. So we prefer future. We jointly should do that. You know, I cannot do it alone. My Turkish counterpart cannot do it alone. No one can do it alone. But together, we can remember the history, but we can move forward and build better future. Time and again, I'm not getting tired of repeating this sentence today. It's a matter of choice. What are we choosing?
Can we say that these comments of the Prime Minister of Armenia is unprecedented for statesmen saying by Armenian side?
Well, to say so, we need to do a little bit. We need to dig a little bit deeper. I believe there have been signs from the Armenian authorities in the past as well. There have been signs. Once we even succeeded to sign protocols, and then we gave up with their ratification. So.
I'll go back to Turkey's role. You said that Turkish Foreign Minister obviously will speak on behalf of Turkey, which we will ask tomorrow. But I'm going to ask to you, did you ask Turkey to play any facilitator role between Armenia and Turkey in this difficult time? I mean, in this deadlocked, obviously, talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Look, the short history of Armenian-Azerbaijani negotiations show that there have been several facilitators, moderators, like Russian Federation, like the United States, like the European Union, different countries. But the history of Armenian and Azerbaijan negotiations show that when we had bilateral negotiations, those negotiations were the most successful. So probably we can have engagement of all the countries which are interested in peace in South Caucasus, in peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, in some way. But when it comes to concrete negotiations, when we are left alone, the two countries alone in the room, we are able to talk directly. We have the contacts. We easily exchange thoughts. So in terms of technicalities, we don't have any problem. So we don't probably also need any other facilitation. But again, all the countries which I mentioned, most probably some others as well, they can have a positive contribution. So the involvement should not be limited to facilitating the negotiations.